Everyone seems to be saying that life is like a game and that starting over feels like pressing the reset button. But I've come to understand that starting over is even way better than pressing the reset button. Starting over is actually going up another level in this game called life. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you why starting over is not failure, it is victory. It is something I've seen in my personal life, and it's something I want to share with as many people who are starting from scratch, who have lost businesses, who have lost friends, who have lost things in their lives, and are wondering and asking themselves, where do they start from? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jesse Daiso, and I help people like you gain clarity so that you can become the best versions of yourself and make a living doing what you love. I love helping people, and today on this video again, I'm going to be telling you how your failure is not a setback. It is actually a setup to build the life that you have been called to live. Many people think that success is just linear. You go from where you are to where you are in your mind. No, it is actually like this. It is this haphazard line, but it is moving upward. If you were to take a graph from far, it just goes like this. But if you zoom in closer, you will see the highs and the lows. You see the valleys and the mountains. All these things contribute to the person that you're becoming. And by God's grace, I'll be sharing with you a framework so that you can become not just the best version of yourself, but hopefully that you can start making a living doing what you love. Before we start, I want you to help like and subscribe to my channel so that more people like you can also watch and enjoy and hopefully find value in my videos. Thank you very much. Okay, the first thing we must understand about failure is once you failed, whether it's your fault or it's the economy, external or internal, one of the things I think you should start doing is you should be kind to yourself. It's something that a friend made me understand when I lost my entire business. My wife and I, we lost our businesses 3 years ago during the pandemic. One of the things they told us is we should be kind to ourselves. Rather than complaining and criticizing and blaming yourself for all that is happening, start being kind to yourself. And that's caused a mind shift in us. And honestly, we started to see that, like I said earlier, that wasn't just a setback. It was a setup, because what do you do when you start from scratch? What do you do when you've lost everything and you are literally at sub-zero? You now start to ask questions. You become self-reflective and you start to ask, okay, what can I do? What are my skills? What are my expertise? What story can I tell? And you start to ask all these deep self-reflective questions, and you start to brings out something that God has placed on the inside of you, and you realize that many of the structures you were holding on to were really a house of cards. And thank God for that. But now you're here and you're starting from scratch. It is victory. It may not look like it, it may not feel like it, but I'm going to break it down for you. Number one is self-rediscovery. What happens is you start to ask yourself questions. You will notice that you are shedding away the layers that have been holding you back. You're asking the questions that matter. You are rediscovering your passions. You're rediscovering your skills and your talent and resources that has made you the person that you are. And honestly, if you dig down and sharpen these things, you are self-rediscovering, and you can use them to build again. And number two is growth. Growth happens when something dies. It's the part of life. Death is the part of life. So growth, think of it as a cycle. That cycle in your life has ended. A business, a failed relationship, all these things has ended. Think of it as that cycle has ended. And now you are wiser, you are stronger. You start a new cycle of growth. With the new information you have, with the new wisdom you have, you are now on the journey of personal growth. And number three, resilience. You now have the courage to start again. I admire people who build from nothing. One of my favorite films in the past 20 years is Iron Man, and I mean the first MCU movie, because it tells the story of Tony Stark, played by Robert Downey Jr., when, he was this arrogant billionaire, war contractor, and he gets kidnapped by terrorists and he loses everything. But he starts from scratch, and that radically changed his life. So I really admire people that are resilient, that are able to start all over from nothing. And so help me God, I will help as many people that I find that starting from nothing. either with information or with any way I can see fit to help them. And number 4, honestly, starting over is freedom. My goodness. When I was running my startup, my creative agency, I used to lose sleep because I needed to come up with millions of naira every month to pay off salaries, to pay off overhead. And I was barely a year into my marriage. So I was losing sleep. Imagine not sleeping in my room, not spending time with my wife as I supposed to. I was depressed, and I was, it was crazy. It was a really tough time. When I lost everything, I felt free. No more overheads, no more salaries, no more. I am happier and I'm better. Now, I'm not saying that every entrepreneur was facing, the same pain I was facing, but I feel free. Starting over it gets just this freedom of not trying to keep up with the Joneses, of not trying to be something I'm not. There's freedom. So all these things add victory, self-rediscovery, resilience, growth, and freedom. Freedom. You are free, my guy. You are free. You are free. So I don't know if you guys have heard the story of Steve Jobs after he was fired from his company, Apple. Steve, after going on a reflective journey, went and he founded 2 successful companies after that. He founded the computer company Next, which was later bought by his former company, Apple, but also he helped found the animation studio, Pixar. And Pixar was later bought by Disney. So that you lost everything does not mean it's the end of your story. So I want you to think of the story of the mythical bird, the phoenix, that, it starts a cycle, it burns, and it rises out of the ashes as a new cycle. So you need to have that mindset that you're starting over. It feels like you're being reborn, so to speak. You are emerging from your setbacks and your failures and your mistakes, if that makes sense. Also, I want you to see starting over as a blank slate, and not just any kind of blank slate, a canvas. Now you can build anything, you can paint any picture. You need to have that approach, the blank canvas approach, and you can be as creative as possible. Decide. Now you can become everything because you are free from the shackles of your former self. Now you can literally build from scratch. You can become anything. How does a warmonger and contractor become a superhero trying to end war? Because he lost everything and he was building from scratch, and he had the blank canvas approach. So it's the same thing I believe that you should do. Now that you're starting from scratch and you have zero, nothing, you need to start from scratch. Now, another thing I want you to understand is about the power of perspective. Thomas Edison says that he was talking about the light bulb. He says, I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. My goodness. So another thing a mentor told me is that failure is actually education. Failure is actually education. So also, if you read this book, Mindset by Carol Dweck, it's a book that has greatly impacted me. I read it last year. She talks about how failure helps build a growth mindset. So for people who feel like, oh, I've failed at this thing, I've made a mistake, what did I do wrong? They educate themselves, and then when they are informed, it helps add to their personal growth journey. Okay, lastly, I have a video on reinvention. I'm going to link it up here. But I want you to understand that reinvention is personal growth. Reinvention is personal growth. Just as, you're building with a blank canvas, I want you to think about, I don't know if you guys have noticed this thing. There are music artists, when they release new albums, sometimes their core fans, or maybe not their core fans, some of their fans hate the new music. But what that artist has done is they've reinvented themselves. And some artists that have stayed longer than 10 years in the industry, one of the things that they've had to do or learn is the art of reinvention. And who says you have to be the same thing you were 10 years ago? My guy, reinvent yourself. Who you were, who you are becoming. That's the shift that you are. So if you are listening to this and you're starting from zero, honestly, I know it may not feel good, but this is one of the best times of your life because you can literally build anything now. You can build anything now. So I really encourage you to not be afraid. I encourage you to not give up. There's more. I'm not yet where I want to be, but I'm that journey. So I'm grateful and I'm looking forward to, what I'm going to become and what God has in store for me. So thank you for watching this video. Again, if you've not liked and subscribed, please do so that more people like you can find value in this and my channel can grow. I'm trying to get it to the first 1,000 subscribers. Thank you for supporting this. If you want to get more actionable tips and me to send letters to you every Friday, then join the Fire Nation and the link below. See you in the next video.